It is my great honor to welcome to the Big Mountain Dub Club a man that has recorded 7 albums starting out in 2005 with Declaration of Truth, 2018 Bamboo Keras. Am I getting that right? And
Yeah, bamboo grass.
Bamboo Keras. And Indonesian reggae star, and a man that is very, very busy, winner of several awards, and is spending a lot of time touring around the world. Let's hear it for Ras Muhamad. Thank you, my brethren, for being on the Big
Thank
Mountain Dub
you. Big
Club.
up Big Mountain Dog Club and the Big up Kino. Yeah, man.
Yes,
Honor.
I.
A great opportunity to be here. Such a pleasure. Yeah, man.
So it's morning. You live in Bali?
Yeah. I've been living in Bali, been residing here for about the past 5 years. So it's my creative nest and it's also a place of rest where, I can be, what is it, like anonymous, like an unknown person, just a normal human being.
They
Because
leave you.
as soon as I step out, yeah, they leave me alone.
Okay.
They either like, "Are you famous?" I would be like, "No, I just look like someone famous." I would just be telling people that. Because as soon as I step out of this island, it's like my life is like a speeding bullet of touring and like that. Excluding 2020, yeah. But other than that, yeah, really grateful and thankful to be in Bali.
What part
It's
of
a really
Indonesia?
super easy live.
Nice, man. I'm sure.
Come again?
Bali's beautiful. I love Bali. It's
Yeah. Super
just
beautiful.
it's amazing that all of that could be on one island. It's just like
Hmm. Definitely.
it's so beautiful, man. And anybody who hasn't, I mean,
Mm.
even just looking at pictures of Bali on the internet, even doing that could change your life in a positive way. Now, what part
Yeah,
of
true.
Indonesia are your family roots from?
Well, I was born and raised in Jakarta, but my family is from Central Java, Semarang. So my mom is from Central Java, Semarang, and my dad, who passed away 3 years ago, he's from would be considered as West Java. Yeah,
Nice,
would be
nice.
called Banten, Rangkas Bitung. So yeah,
Do you
only
do it?
Java boy.
You do a lot of work on that island?
Yeah. In Java and Sumatra, all over the place. A lot of the provinces, I'm quite active. In Sumatra, in Kalimantan, and Sulawesi, and all that.
Now, to all the people that don't know about Indonesian reggae, I tell them,
Yeah.
whenever people ask me, I said, man, you should. I mean, it's got its own scene. It's flourishing. I mean,
Mm,
it's beautiful. There's so many great bands, so many great
thank you.
musicians, and give us a little taste of what would give us a sense of understanding how big reggae is in Indonesia.
Reggae is big. Reggae is big time. I mean, like, it's either me or Tony Q, Mas Tony, or like Soldier or like Steven Jam. Every time they play is in front of, I guess, 5,000 to 10,000 people.
Wow.
So it's that huge. And the great thing is that our climate all year long is warm, so we would have festivals all year long, including from 2020. So yeah, that's how big it is.
It's just,
So people here love the music. But
yeah.
me, taking the role in the beginning of my career in Indonesia, I took the role as Reggae Ambassador. So I had the responsibility and also awareness and consciousness of like educating the reggae audience and my own audience of where this music comes from. Telling them of like the history, the culture, and also who's and who's who, and all of that. So yeah.
Right. Oh, that's great that you accepted that that responsibility. Now, how did that whole thing come about? The reggae ambassadorship.
Uh, well, one thing, I'm a big fan of a third world. That's one thing, and I felt that I think every artist or everyone that loves reggae music has the responsibility of like spreading this culture and also educating the people. That is not just a musical genre, but it's a culture of its own, you know. And
Right.
one of my big inspiration of as a musician would be Gentleman out of Germany. You know,
Mm.
he never detached or disconnect himself from Kingston, Jamaica,
Mm.
and he made a name of his own. You know, he's well respected by Jamaicans, but he's well loved, also well beloved, also not just in Europe but also in Africa. When I was in Ethiopia 2012, I was jamming with a few brethren. They're native Ethiopians, but they were playing Jenkaman tunes, and
Nice.
they remember every word of it. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. It's like,
Wicked.
reggae music cross over so many boundaries and so many nations, and all of that is just pure vibrations, just vibes.
It's beautiful when artists reach back like that. And I know Gentleman is famous for doing that. I ran into
Hmm.
my friend and mentor Marcia Griffiths a few years ago,
Oh.
and she was
Hmm.
on her way to do like a 3 week run with Gentleman, and she was tired, but she
Hmm.
was excited. You know, she was excited about being on the
Yeah, yeah,
road
yeah.
with him, man.
Hmm.
So that's beautiful when artists do that. You know what I mean, and really respect
Yeah, yeah.
that older generation of reggae musicians.
Yes, yes. And like with reggae music, it's something special. I never thought of having the call and taking the call of reggae music and still be here because of reggae music, being in this seat in front of you. It is like really mind-boggling, and it's hard to process. In which I grew up with your music. One of my first exposure of like reggae music was with your work with Dave Mountain. Seeing you on TV, on Indonesian television, and you're like, oh, what's this? This music is is very different, And then I also was called on stage by Jenkaman on 2018, and after that experience itself, like I told you, like cried tears of joy. It's like this isn't really happening. It's like I'm very thankful of the blessings that the divine has provided for me in my life and my career.
Well, I know you deserve a lot of that. I mean, we could give all the credit to the Most High, but you're very
Yes.
busy, man. I see that you you have a work ethic that is very hard on yourself from what I see, because it just seems like between
Thank
the
you.
last 5, 6, 7 years of your life, you've
Hmm.
done a lot of collaborations. You've been touring in
Thank you.
Europe, and then
Hmm.
doing all of your work. I know that it's a lot of work. I know what being on the road is like. Even if you're doing it in Indonesia, in a certain
Hmm.
geographical area, it doesn't matter. You're still very tired, man, and it's very
Hmm.
grueling. Where do you
Hmm.
get that? Where do you get that? I mean, you're that driven part of you.
That driven part of me, is just passion and love, I guess. It's just passion and love, But to be honest, there was some parts where uh, I think I exhausted myself some years ago, and then I went to Kingston, Jamaica, and it really restored that fire. And also, I linked up with a bridge of mine. His name is Toki, so he's like my better half of my creativity. I found my younger self in him, and he just sparked something in me where he gave me, besides Kingston, Jamaica, but also him, he gave me a rebirth on my creativity in my direction. So I guess that's I'm just enjoying all the journey,
And I
enjoying every
know.
aspects and every part of the journey.
Speaking
Hmm.
of journeys, I mean, you went to Ethiopia. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I went to
Yeah,
Ethiopia. That
yeah.
was, if I'm correct, 2012.
Wow.
2012. Yeah, I was there for a month, and then 2013, I released a book called Negri Palangi. That means Rainbow Country. Is about my journey in Ethiopia. So it's pretty much like a journal and my meditation as a Rastaman, finding the connection between Jamaica, Ethiopia, and also Indonesia. So I want to also again educate my audience and also the masses of like where this music come from, because there's also the values in it. There's also the culture in the
That's
history.
so great, man, that you do that.
I thank you, man.
I mean, I think it takes courage. Usually sometimes to impose yourself upon people, right, and say, listen, this is what I think, and this is what I think that you should. It's really important for you to know. Yeah. Um,
Mhm.
Tell us more about what you, and I haven't read your book yet, Brethren, and I'd love to. I
Mhm.
don't do a lot of reading these days, and I used to be such a prolific reader, man.
Oh,
Um,
really? Mhm.
and then, of course, I studied for a long time, but tell us a little bit more about that connection: Jamaica, Indonesia, Ethiopia.
Well, there's well, one thing that's a fact of history: Ethiopia is the only non-colonized African country.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that is common that for Jamaica and Indonesia, they were a colonized country. But also coming back to the Rastafari movement, that is, has embedded values in reggae music. It's pretty much the search of identity, one for the
Yes.
African identity, and then for Indonesia, when we, declared our independence, we were searching for also our national identity. That's one of the similarities that I found. And
Yeah.
in 1955, Indonesia was the host for the first global conference of non-colonial countries, or pretty much the first global conference of colored peoples, called the Asia Africa Conference. It was
Wow.
historic by then. It was a big threat to like the big colonial powers, to the Western Bloc and to the Soviet bloc. It's like, what is this? A small country who just like declared independence in 10 years, just gather around all the other, smaller countries to like gather around to like, fight the power, basically. So it's like for me that it has like that connection, Asia Africa conference, with like songs like Bob Marley's Small Axe. If you are a big tree, we have a small axe. Like
Yes.
uniting, getting together, fighting the power, and all that. So those values, I put them down in like the book Negri Palangi and all that. The same spirit. And I was actually very blessed also when I released that book in Negri Palangi, the Asia Africa Conference. The building itself now, it has become a museum. They invited me to speak about the book and everything. What it means. The movement, the Asia Africa movement, and it was great. Like performing my songs. Like one of the songs would be called Emancipasi. That means emancipation. It's about Asia Africa, but you have so many like Asian flags and also African flags, and one of the flags is Ethiopian flag, the Lion of Judah flag. In which it was the old flag. So it was like, man, this is like a total divine connection. Something is like it's crazy. Now I'm at a building in which like maybe 60, 70 years ago was talking about the independence and liberation of all oppressed people, and now I'm singing like reggae songs in this building. So I'm just like, wow, it's like it's crazy.
I'm so glad to hear you speak like this, man. I mean, it's so refreshing
Thank
for
you.
an old reggae man like me to know that there's
You're never
young.
old, but you're never old. Music keep us young. Remember that? Music keep us young.
But you're bringing up so many important points that I think a lot of people forget about reggae, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
wow, man. And I kind of feel like I'm always the one that's harping. Remember this, remember that, And I know
Yeah, yeah,
we're
yeah.
having fun. We're on the beach, we're
Hmm.
this is party music, but let's not forget what this music is all about. It's a serious music that deals with serious things,
True,
and colonialism,
true.
and like you say, Haile Selassie, Rastafari, big speech, United Nations, told the whole
Hmm.
civilized, so-called civilized world, get the hell out of Africa, right? And
Hmm.
and we have to remember those values in reggae music, because really, when it all
Hmm.
comes down to it, if this world wants to evolve and keep on moving forward together, right? We
Hmm.
have to we have to push that colonial past away,
Oh yeah.
one, and we have to be
Hmm.
critical of it, right? We have to study it to understand how it's affected us and affected our self-esteem, and like you say,
Hmm.
our identity, right? Our ability
Hmm.
to say, I am proud of who I am. I'm proud of the color of
Hmm.
my skin,
Hmm.
and I'm proud of my ancestors. That's reggae music.
Hmm. True, true, and I believe also with reggae music, it can be this sort, let's say, a weapon to like fight whatever remnants of colonialism there still remains. I
Yes,
mean,
I.
Indonesia is not, Indonesia is not innocent from the remnants of colonialism. Like to be truthful, and to be honest, we have a major issue in colorism. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if you were to say, like if you watch TV or in the advertisements, like they would say, have lighter skin color and all of that. I'm like, we're not we're not the lightest, we're not light skin colored people. We're brown, dark brown, and when you can say black, you know what I mean? And it's like, what's wrong
Right.
with that? That's like the remnants of colorism of this, like maybe I don't know what it is. It's like
Colonial bullshit.
yeah, it's all this conditioning and all of it,
Right.
And I feel that I'm like we're working with a band, like my band in Jakarta, Easy Skanking. I was very blessed to work with what a lot of people in the social structure would say Melanesians, a
Right.
darker skin colored peoples. And I'm very blessed so I can break those stereotypes because in this like colorism issue, when you're the darker you are in this world, they would view you as someone less, with
Right.
this social structure that we are, that you're like, oh, you just gonna be a muscle for someone or whatever, whatever, whatever. It's like, no, no, no. No, we can be creative, we can be doctors, we can be scientists, we can be presidents, and so forth. You know what I mean? Breaking those stereotypes is very important.
So true, bro. So true. And every word you're saying is so important for people to hear, man. And that's what the Dub Club is
Hmm.
all about, man. It's just trying to get some good conversations that we can archive and we can
Hmm.
just say,
Thank
hey,
you.
man, this is how we felt during all these
Hmm.
times right now that we're facing some strange times. I don't know if you got to see the presidential debate last night.
Oh no, I didn't see.
Okay. Everybody's talking about just how this precedent was broken and Donald Trump would not let Joe Biden talk. It was pure chaos, right? And I
Hmm.
don't really
Hmm.
want to get into that, but um, I think that there is sort of democracy has really shown its weakness in this time, in these periods, right? Because
Hmm.
of what you see is going on in the United States. You see that even in a democracy, we can elect a crazy man, right? Um,
Yeah.
and it can lead to authoritarian type government. And we know that United States, all of this idea that United States is free and the United States is the beacon of democracy. Reggae people know that's a bunch of bullshit. We appreciate the United States for what it is, right? But
Hmm.
but the beautiful thing about reggae people is that we've kind of been conditioned. We've been giving, at least the ones that of us that really take this blessing, right? This
Hmm.
Rastafarian sort of uh, view of the world that allows us to break down all the lies and the illusions and say, no, this is really what's going
Hmm.
on, right? Um,
Hmm.
but what do young Indonesian people think when they see sort of Western countries acting so crazy when Western countries are always pointing at Indonesia and countries in Asia and saying, "Oh, um, you guys are, or I should say, being critical of Asian
Hmm. Hmm.
countries." When you see how dysfunctional democracy is in the United States.
Uh, I think a lot of the young Indonesians would view it as confusing. Like, they blame a lot of things on us, and there's like a double standard of like
Right.
how America is. It's like uh, let's say the state or the government would like be played as like moral police, like pointing fingers, you should do this and do this and that. Whereas in their own backyard, they can even take care in the matters of racism, especially for this year, for Black Lives Matter and all of that. So it's like, take care of your own backyard first. We see how it is. It's like with
Yes.
the issues of like gun control and all of that. Like I think America itself is like one of the highest rates of like, people dying because of guns. And it's like it's by the tens of thousands per year. And like that itself should be like a very scary statistics. It's like, yo, you gotta check yourself. People are dying because your inventions of your weapons. It's like, man, you gotta stop with the guns, man. Like there's no one else dying.
Hello.
There's, it's like in Indonesia, there's no homicidal rate of like, people dying from guns, from firearms or anything like that. There is petty criminals, yes, of course, petty crime. But other than that, there's nothing like like with firearms and all of that. It's like, whoa.
They get such a bad impression, huh? It's and that ignorance, of course, is what we're suffering from right here in the United States,
Hmm.
because people are lacking so much of a really worldly education and understanding of the world. Right? We're in such a bad situation, bad time in the history. Actually, it's always been bad, but Americans right now are so close-minded,
Mm.
and it's really sad. But that's not what this interview is about. And what I do want to talk about, um, at one point in my life, um, and this was at Big Mountain's height,
All
and
right.
I'm getting personal right now. Um, I was totally not prepared for the fame that I received. Like we're talking in 1994, 1995, when Baby I Love Your Way came out, and I wasn't really prepared to deal with the sort of the controversy that surrounded Baby I Love Your Way and reggae and Rastafarianism, and it really took me by surprise how I wasn't able to control my image. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
The record company set the image that they wanted to set, and I was always hoping that I was going to be able to fill in the holes, just like you're doing. And I'm so proud of you for doing
Hmm.
that.
Thank you.
Writing books, I should have wrote more books, and we haven't even gotten into that. And still haven't written one book, but that would have been a good way for me to express myself personally. But I didn't have the skills to do that, and I commend you for doing that. But I cut my locks Baby I Love Your Way came out in '94, and I cut my locks in 1995, and
Okay.
I was kind of going through this spiritual. Things were heavy back then. It was going through this spiritual crisis, and I the only thing at that time that was really kind of holding me together was Islam.
Oh,
And a
really?
lot of people don't know this about me, right? But if
Wow,
you listen to my
mashallah.
records, if you really get into my records,
Hmm.
uh, you'll kind of see. But a lot of it has to do with American Islamic imagery, right? Because my Islam was very much influenced by the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X
All
and
right.
Louis
Hmm.
Farrakhan, right? But then, of course,
Hmm.
that led me to read the autobiography of the Prophet Muhammad, which I've read probably 20 times since then.
Wow.
Um, and the one thing that really kept me from losing it and the only thing that would work, man, was praying for mercy from, just praying for mercy. Allah, just please get me through this time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can say these things now. Back then, I would have been afraid to say that, right? Because I
Hmm.
was the most famous Rasta man in the world for a couple of years, kind of.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I had to carry that banner, and I had to do whatever I could. And I love Rastafari, I love reggae, I love Jamaica,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's. But this was my personal journey, right? I was going through this
Hmm.
experience. I didn't have really anybody else that could help me, and I had lots of people reasoning with me, But if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have that conviction in your heart, right,
Mm-hmm.
you can't fake it. And I wasn't going to fake it. Um, what we there's a lot of Muslims in reggae. Jimmy Cliff and
Mm-hmm.
guys like Alpha Blondie that have a lot of Arabic
Mm-hmm.
stuff in there. Um, how is Islam and reggae? How do they come together and what do they mean to each other? I come from an American Muslim perspective, where
Mm-hmm.
it was so
Mm-hmm.
wrapped up with the Black Power movement. So
Mm-hmm.
I was never intimidated by Muslims because Muslims were a part of our community. It was just so easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, Rastafari felt a lot more natural to me than,
Mm-hmm.
or I should say, Islam felt a lot more natural to me uh, than Rastafarianism. And
Mm-hmm.
how does it work? How does it work over there in Indonesia? Or I should say, personally for you, this is a personal kind of thing.
Well, personally, for me, when I studied the Rastafari movement, one thing, first and foremost, about the Rastafari movement is all about Africa. Yeah, it's all about the upliftment of Africa. And there are so many Muslims in Africa. I think half of the continent itself is Muslims. Huh? So cannot just be a Judeo-Christian movement. It cannot just be partial. You know what I mean? If you
Mm-hmm.
uplift Africa, you need to also uplift African Muslims because, in fact, when we talk about Islamic history, Muslims in Africa have contributed so much to the world, to the globe itself. In fact, where I heard the word university, it started from the Moors, people of Morocco, the
That's right.
Muslims in Morocco. They shaped also the people of Spain, teaching them
Mm-hmm.
about civilizations and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. And
Mm-hmm.
there's also King Musa of Mali. He's regarded as one of the richest man or the wealthiest man in the whole world, and he's a Muslim. He's a Muslim king, and he built empires in Mali, which is stretched forth to east of Africa. That needs to be spoken also, and we need to speak also about Egypt and so forth. But let's say going back to the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, is that it's not known as in the mainstream or popular history, but in actuality, the first exodus of Muslims not to Medina, but is actually to Ethiopia, because during that time of persecutions against Muslims,
That's right.
that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, commanded his followers to seek refuge to Ethiopia. At that time, it was Habesha or Abyssinia. There was a king, a very just and wise king, and accepted Muslims at that time there. So when I see like the flag of Ethiopia or even the colors of reggae music, ice golden green, red golden green, I see the history of Islam also because Muslims were there. So
That's
when I
right.
go to Jamaica alongside Rastas, I feel like I'm in like a time capsule, around Rastas, in which I'm Muslim, but I'm still around this kingdom. You know what I mean?
Yes, I.
You know, and I feel like around that time with the Salamanic dynasty, there are also Muslims who are Rastas in the Ethiopian dynasty and all of that. Because, like one of the greatest uh, quotes that I've ever read from Haile Selassie, His Majesty said, if you differentiate between Muslims and Christians in Ethiopia, you are an enemy of Ethiopia. So,
Mm.
because you really can't differentiate when you're in Ethiopia, because
Rastafari.
Ethiopian Orthodox, they bow inside the churches. You really can't differentiate between Muslims and Christians in Ethiopia, So that's one of the things how I
That's
see it.
beautiful, man. That's beautiful.
No, thank you, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, I in the United States, it's just hurt me so much. The anti-Muslim and anti-Islam sentiment that has that
Yeah.
has been brought about, and that certain people feed upon, right? And they use this
True, true.
type of rhetoric to rile their base when
Hmm.
we know that this is just politics, but people
Oh,
use
definitely.
words in such horrible ways. And and that's just not the love. That's not the Rasta love that I learned to back and that I learned to promote and try to spread throughout the world. Um, I only have beautiful things to say about Islam and all the Muslims that
Thank
I've
you.
ever met, man. I mean, I one of the things that was so striking for me was going into a mosque for the first time
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
meeting people of so many different colors,
Hmm.
um, and different walks of life. But
Hmm.
inside the masjid, there was so much respect and harmony and loving vibrations. I'll never
Yeah,
forget
true.
that. And it really, I broke down and I cried because in the United States, I had never seen that. I grew up in a interracial family, and although we all worked it out amongst each other, I got to see the
Hmm.
back door, right? I got to see as a little kid growing up what people say about each other, and I've always considered that type of behavior so inferior to what humans should be like, and
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
why I think I gravitated so strongly to Rastafari because I saw it as
Hmm.
a bridge to be able to make connections. And that's what I'm excited to hear you make so many connections and not and be courageous about that because
Hmm.
let's be straight. You have to be brave to start reaching out to other areas and helping other people understand that. Ras Muhamad, thank you for your time. This has been an amazing conversation. I wish
Awesome, man.
you success and strength and that you just continue with this clarity that you got, bro, because
Thank
you're
you.
you're doing
Thank
good
you.
things, man. You're doing good things.
Mm. And to all people that are checking out Big Mountain Dub Shop, don't forget to check out my new album, Satya.
Okay, Ras Muhammad, we will be linking
All
up
right, you
sooner,
got it.
bro.
All right. All
Love and
right, yeah.
respect to all the massive over there.
Right. Peace. Yeah.
Okay, bro.
Take care.
Okay, bro.
Stay
Easy.
blessed.